and give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation. Thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased to welcome the eminent participants in this important discussion, preparations for which took a number of years. We thank the Secretary General for the fact that he found the time personally to take part in this discussion. We further thank the Peruvian presidency for the initiative of convening today's meeting. Today, on the second day of deliberations at the General Assembly, those present here already have a view as to how member states envisage our progress on such an important avenue for the UN as building and sustaining peace. As is known, those who do not recall the past cannot count on a dignified future. For this reason, I wish to turn to the very sources of peacebuilding to recall that with which it began and to recall the noble goals set forth by the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council when they established these avenues for work. 13 years ago, through resolutions 60/180 and 1645, two United Nations charter bodies established the Peacebuilding Commission to deliver assistance to countries during the post-conflict period. The main aim of this decision is to, as expeditiously as possible, help set countries on the path to development and recovery. The Commission was instructed to deliver assistance in crafting peace-building strategies for host states on the basis of their priorities, to bring together the key stakeholders within and beyond the United Nations and to coordinate their efforts. 10 years later, the twin resolutions 70/262 and 2282 specified the objectives of the Peacebuilding Commission. Above all, states agreed on a definition for sustaining peace, which helps to gain an understanding among the challenges, the distinction among the challenges implemented nationally and internationally to achieve lasting solutions. For states, this is national ownership for the definition, setting out and implementation of peace-building strategies, the importance of accounting for public opinion, the importance to prevent the outbreak, escalation, continuation, and recurrence of conflict, as well as addressing root causes thereof. At the same time, it is important that the importance of sustaining peace is a challenge borne not only by the government, but equally by all other national stakeholders. Insofar as international assistance on sustaining peace plays an auxiliary role, this term has a rather different meaning at the United Nations. It implies that such support needs to hinge on the experience of all departments of the organization, and that attention needs to be given at the very outset, and from the very beginning and during all stages of conflict. And at the same time, each UN body is to operate strictly within their mandate. From the adoption 2 years ago of the twin resolutions, there have been persistent debates in the halls of the UN as to how specifically action on this track is to change. The Secretary General has significantly contributed to this discussion through his recent thematic report. His proposals and recommendations, without a doubt, will constitute a basis for further discussions amongst member states to improve the effectiveness and capacity of the United Nations in the realm of peace-building assistance. I will not preempt our statement to be delivered tomorrow at the General Assembly. I would note but the following. Peacebuilding, number one, peacebuilding and sustaining peace are inextricably linked. With the introduction of a new term, the conventional peacekeeping must not be relegated to the back burner. On the contrary, as the work of the PBC reflects, this is becoming all the more necessary. For this reason, we are skeptical vis-a-vis the idea of positioning sustaining peace as a new central objective. Second, Conflict prevention is a standalone avenue. Its principles have been enshrined in the United Nations Charter and resolutions. The preeminent role here is also played by states themselves. Within the limits of their national territory, they themselves determine whether or not they require international support and what shape such support is to take. Third, one-size-fits-all approaches or reliable universal indicators for crisis, by definition, do not exist. Each instance requires a tailored individual approach, a unique decision, and most importantly, the consent of a state for international support. This also applies to the issue of human rights, which frequently is artificially politicized to exert influence on sovereign domestic political processes. It is indeed intervention in domestic affairs with the pretext of protection and promotion of human rights. These are the causes for the majority of present-day brutal conflicts. There are many such examples. Many similar situations, unfortunately, are taking place in states neighboring the Russian Federation. Fourth, the main objective of resident coordinators should be to boost effectiveness and reliability of state institutions without duplicating nor supplanting their work. Monitoring of subtle indicators, not obvious indicators, instead of assisting in addressing urgent issues, is fraught with the risk of reducing, not improving, effectiveness. Fifth, speaking of theoretical interlinkages of human rights, development, peace, and security, it is important for us to recall the fact that each of these avenues is to be addressed by dedicated bodies in a manner fully in line with established mandates. Discussions or non-discussions of certain issues at the Security Council need not become criteria regarding the importance for the international community. Mr. President, the Security Council will shortly adopt a resolution identical to the one agreed upon by the General Assembly. We support the core message of these documents that member states are to closely focus on issues of peace and intend to continue discussions thereon. We value the Secretary General's contribution to this discussion. We hope that the procedural consensus and procedural resolutions will be properly interpreted. Building and sustaining peace are far too multidimensional in nature to rely on what is largely a contrived consensus. A great deal of work lies ahead, during which member states and bodies of the United Nations will learn to better understand and account for each other's priorities. We are convinced that the main aim and purpose of peace building and sustaining peace, and of the United Nations as a whole, is to help states build their own capacity for them to be able to dispense with international assistance, and ultimately to begin to help those who are still in need of this. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation.